Philip Siracusa, sponsored by Carnation, airing live on the United Public Radio Network on 105.3 FM in New Orleans. This show's entrance has been edited, produced, and directed by Gwen from Perfect Trust Productions, LLC. You can find us at perfecttrustproductions.com.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Monday night segment of Horsefly Chronicles Radio with myself, Julia Syracuse, and Julia Syracuse. We are broadcasting live from the International Public Radio and the United Paranormal Radio Network on 105.3 FM from New Orleans. This evening's show is fully sponsored by Carnation. So we want to thank them for their sponsorship. We love them. You have to do a few things in order to participate. Go over to the YouTube channel, UFO Paranormal Radio or International Public Radio. You can also go to all of the Facebook stations, UFO Paranormal Radio Network, UFO Undercover with Joe Montaldo, News on the Flip Side, Twitch, SoundCloud, Compeep, all of them. And if you have any questions for our guests, please ask. Tonight, guys, we have an amazing guest. So please welcome to the show, Aaron G Thompson from the new hit show on Netflix, paranormal reality horror show 20 Days Haunted. 20 Days Haunted hit number 5 in the U.S. on the network in its first week. Aaron has been pursuing his passion for the paranormal since 1999. Tonight we get to hear how this all started from him. And don't forget, if you guys have not seen 28 Days Haunted yet, it's on Netflix, and it's awesome. So, it's based off the series of the paranormal investigators Ed and Ruth Warren. So please welcome to the show, Aaron.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. How's everyone doing?
Can you hear us?
Yeah, you're welcome, Phil. Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me, Julia?
Yes, great.
Cool.
So,
Again, thank you.
So much. Thank you so much for coming on tonight. I know that you're really crazy busy over there.
No, you're fine.
Bring us to the beginning of your story. Like, how did you get into paranormal and take it from there, from the very, very beginning?
The very, very beginning. Oh gosh, you're going back to 1999.
Yeah.
Cool. So around, technically it stemmed even before that. 1999 is just when I started to do the research and gather the data. So before that, it was, what are ghosts in a sense, right? If you break it down to the most simplex, I guess, question, and I say that loosely, but as a 8-year-old, I had fear of death, which was kind of strange. And then as I got into my teens and so forth, I just asked, my peers, people I trusted and so forth, do ghosts exist? That was kind of my gateway to, afterlife and kind of expelling that fear of death, at least hopefully. Peers, ministers, coaches, friends, teachers, family. It's funny because about half of them said yes, they exist. The other half said no. All with the same answer, just because. So I just kind of took a deep breath and said, if you want to do something, you got to do it yourself, right? So that's when I started to actually gather some data and really push forward. I did about 2 years of book research before I hit my first site. 2001 is when I did that. And my team at the time, I recruited them. They consisted of individuals that had to be 21 and older. So I want to take this serious, right? So adults are more serious, at least in the version that I was starting off at. But mind you, at that time, I was 19. So I was still a teenager, just so graduated shortly before. and the rest of my team were over 21. Yeah, I just wanted to figure this thing out like right away. But here I am, 24 years later. I'll be 24 years later this year. It's crazy, and yeah, I just kind of challenged myself, and I started very unbiasedly. I noticed a lot of the large organizations, either scientific ones as well as the systematic uh, religion uh, organizations, that very very biased towards their thoughts and their ideas, the data, and no one to my knowledge base and research at the time really married the two. They thought both kind of thought the other one was crazy, at least perception, right? Subjective. To me at the time, that forced me to really take a middle ground with this and see, how can we complement both of these features. And I actually didn't believe when I started, but I wanted again to be very unbiased with my steps forward. And again, here I am, 24 years later, and it goes pretty deep.
Wow.
Amazing.
So let's talk. All right. So let's talk about 28 Days Haunted, because we have a lot of questions. How did this all go down for you? How did you get on the show? Like, how did it fall into place?
Well, 24 years of research. No, okay. At the time it was about 22. So I've always chased the passion, right? And I've never chased the money. I've never chased the fame. I've never wanted to be a known talent in this scenario. My mentors, if I would have any mentors, was Tesla, was Einstein, was Joshua Warren. They're scientists. These guys are very grounded and they're logical in kind of their theories and their ideas. Those are just, a handful. So again, I prefer to be in the lab and just knock it out. The reality is, doing what we do, it's pseudoscience. And like NASA, you have to have a source to bring income and funds towards you, so you can continue to do the research. Right now, there's so many folks who it's great for the awareness aspect, and it's fun. But if you don't continue to build kind of an income source around it, and I guess be allowed to do the research on an escalated level, it's just going to burn. I've seen so many people get burned out because they hear this narrative saying, oh, I'm just going to do this, blah blah blah, with my own steam, or whatever the case may be. More power to them. But with that mindset, I was just chasing the passion. I was going, and happened to have a contact in Chicago that reached out to me. That was, I think, back in February of 2001, and they said they needed someone else. I said I only really work with one other person, Nick. So I called Nick. We did the interview. I think, we we're confident in what we do, right? But we are characters too. We're goofballs. I'm actually a professionally trained public speaker and other aspects of presentation, which helps out in this as well. But we're passionate. Again, we're passionate about what we do. So we did that. We're about 7 or so months worth of interviews and whatnot, and they liked us pretty much right away. So yeah, we didn't know where we were going until about 3 days before. And technically, we didn't get the job until about a week and a half before.
That's crazy. The whole 28 days, were you away from your family the entire 28 days?
Yes, no internet, no cell phone, no active cell phone. I think I had like a burner phone that I used some apps on. I say I think I did have a burner phone that I used some apps on, but yeah, no connected internet, Wi-Fi, nothing like that. And it was really just us two and a conversation every now and then with the producer. Small chat with the cameraman if we stepped outside, but inside it was just us. And yeah, we were isolated for pretty much a month, and that was tough. That's a different kind of psychological scenario.
I have to say that everybody did a great job. Like you were very, very, very authentic on the show, and you did a great job.
I
You
appreciate
really,
that.
you
That
really
means
did.
a lot. It means a
You
lot.
really
You know,
did.
I. Oh, go ahead,
I
Julie.
think
I'm sorry.
that the internet alone for 28 days, that'll make you go out of your mind.
And what's funny about this is that Ed and Lorraine Warren were the most famous paranormal investigators as everybody knows, right? But they discovered that it does take around 28 days to really focus on an investigation, and we believe in that. Because here's the thing: how do you do an investigation in 1 or 2 days? I mean, they don't play
Right.
by your rules, the ghosts, right? The spirits, they it does take a long time, so I totally understand that whole cycle, and it makes sense. It does.
Well, and the funny thing with the 28 Days Haunted, yeah, Ed and Lorraine were very, they're definitely known in the field of paranormal. Um, the theory that Ed actually rolled with the 28 Days Haunted, I've, I've, without really knowing that theory idea from him, I was already on the very same narrative, and Nick as well. Um, with us working together side by side, we called it rapport. We build a rapport with the location. It's not so intense where we stay at a location for that long. That was pretty intense. But it's about going back to the same location and just building rapport and keep on building that relationship with the location. And that's had a lot of success. And this was just like that, but in an extreme scenario. And funny story, because the edit and presentation is exactly what happened, but there's so much left on the chopping table because it was only like 3 hours, I think, combined upon 3 locations. So there's a lot of cuts. And I got to say, the first day that we were there in the house, was probably one of the most active days moments that we had. And unfortunately, we just burped past it. It was the only day that it rained. It stormed. So not only was the water just coating this old house, we were jacking up the location uh, with the static generator. So we're just getting more intense responses right off the bat. And that day we actually did solos in the house. And that was kind of my callback later on because we had such success with the solos. And all of us had very visual experiences that were calling the camera, that were very much data oriented. Um, it's unfortunate that that's on the cutting room floor, but again, at the end of the day, we want it repeatable anyway, so that's something we'll have to try to figure out. But there was a lot of interesting stuff, especially like I said, day one. Even at one point, my bed started shaking, like in the middle of sleeping, and I can't remember if that was day one or day two. But I was sleeping, and all of a sudden my bed was like shaking, and I'm like, what's happening?
I was gonna ask you what was like the most intense experience that you had. I mean, would you say that was the first couple
Yeah.
of days?
Well, kind of. Yeah, I had a reaction up in the attic where I was, talking to seemingly, the air, but being assumptive with the energy around me. And I had a tripwire, so like just a long jump rope of EMF detectors, so we see what intensity and what angle, direction the free floating energy could be coming from. Because the funny thing with the electromagnetic field is it's radiation, so it radiates from the source. So if we find it free floating, that's the exciting moment. Whether it's a spirit or not, there's other things that we can test with that. However, I was doing my thing, and then the whole rope just, I say, blew up. It lit up, extreme. And I looked right at the camera, and I said, static energy is tight around me. I'm uncomfortable. It's hard for me to breathe. I'm just like, describing what I'm feeling at the spot. All of a sudden, I said, I want to leave, but I said, I'm going to stay here. And then all of a sudden it popped again. It lit and it was gone, completely gone. And that was interesting because that started a narrative that unfortunately, again, no one's really going to see. But I actually, not knowing the location, I had now a moment where I was oppressed, where something attached to me, and I was caught off guard. I mean, day one, we're doing solos. I know through what land we are, barely knew what state we were in. Definitely didn't know what city we're in. But that about 2 weeks, I was getting more and more depressed. I was isolating myself. I wanted to go. I was getting more mad at the guys. And it was weird until one moment where I was looking in the mirror, and the mirror looked like a social media filter. Like I was looking in there, and it looked like I had a long chin. It looked like I had a weird tongue, like a long nose. I looked like a witch. And I described this to the guys, and I was almost drunk, grabbing my face. So then they told me to sit down, and then I was mad at them. I thought they were just trying to pull drama. I'm just telling them what I'm seeing. And then I was getting more and more mad. I felt in my head. I was just getting so furious with them, and I don't know why I'm getting so upset. Like, it's just not my character. So I wanted to move on with the investigation, and I told them, because they both agreed something's wrong with me. And Nick was running the camera at this time, and I told Sean to get the water, and he starts to get me a bottle of water, and I go, no, get the water. At that point, he clicks on the holy water I'm asking him for. I'm just asking you so he could throw it on me, and I could say nothing's there, and I move on with the day, right? Not the case. He threw it on me, and it felt like battery acid. I said a lot of profanities, and I cursed through the entire, almost like third body, like I'm out of my body looking at myself, but not. That's kind of what it felt like. And as I'm saying the St. Michael prayer, repeating it back from Sean, it's like I'm cussing through the whole thing, and it's very out of character. I remember Nick just has a camera, and he's like, I don't think that's in the prayer. remember chuckling a little bit at that, even in the moment. But I'm like, what? But at this point, I'm feeling this like static net being lifted off of me. And once it popped over my head, I jumped up. The contrast and my mood change was crazy. It was unreal. And that's why I was so bought in with. And then I was bought in with kind of what happens and what can happen with the oppression scenario, but I just did not expect it to happen to me like that. So that was an interesting thing. And then it was like a superhero story of us taking on the rest of the place, which would have been a really cool narrative.
How does that happen, you think, when you said you were oppressed?
Oh, gosh.
It's going to take you over?
Well, it's the starting stages of an actual possession. So for lore, right? So they get you isolated, they get you kind of in a weak state mentally. And I say they, ultimate energy for the most part, whatever we want to call it, right? And mind you, this location we were at, it was 1754, I believe, was the date they said the building was made. So that's all fine and dandy, but in the 1600s, that whole land was filled with blood. All sorts of different types of scenarios happened. Connecticut is actually bigger in the witch trials and how brutal it was in Salem ever was, but they don't really say that in history books. And this is something I've learned when I was down there. So yeah, it's basically per practitioner, such as Sean, the demonologist, people within that world, the oppression is kind of that first stage, or at least the transition stage to potential scenarios that could get a little worse. And I would say subjective, but that whole scenario is very real. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not saying it was a religious thing, right? I think a lot of that's subjective, but the energy itself and the reaction of what it did is very real.
It's amazing. And I've seen that happen to people, and I always question, how does it work and why they do that? But I've seen it happen.
and I'm a science guy, right? So there's no system that I belong to, and again, this is a fascinating thing for me. So as a cynic or a skeptic would probably look at this, I'm probably the best person to tell them, hey guys, something went down. This is what it felt like, and this is what happened, and these are the behaviors, and really we documented the whole almost narrative right there. Again, kind of hurts my heart that no one was able to see that, because that was just that had to be a fascinating build up, because you would have seen the whole thing from day one to the moment. And then after, of course, when I ended up taking over a lead in a lot of cases, I was very able at that point.
When did you finally break away from that negativity and that oppression? When you left the location?
No, about week 2 or so. After the holy water hit me, I felt a little bit of battery acid. Right then and there is when I felt a lift, and I physically felt it lift. And at that point, now I know, right? Now I kind of know what happened, what's going down. So I was able to kind of get my guard up with the rest of the time frame, which is awesome.
Do you have to be at a location like that for those type of things to happen? Or typically speaking, if you and your crew, where you are right now, because let's face it, right? You're a science guy, you're on land, and the land is very, very old. Right. So who's to say that where you are right now, something didn't happen 1,000 years ago?
Oh, exactly. What I feel, and here's kind of a kicker with that narrative, because you're right? But it's all about intent, right? Who's putting the narrative still in that land? Is it local natives, like where I'm at right now? No one's probably saying this porch is haunted, so it's not going to be haunted. We can haunt our locations with enough, but it depends on what kind of intensity we want to put towards that. How many people believe this? How many people believe in something huge? And this stuff can hurt people. This stuff can injure people. That's the scary thing. It's unseen, but and I've known this for years. It's just in different narratives, and now I'm almost on the narrative where we create our own monsters, which makes it even more scary. So this porch, it'll be fine. In the context of nothing's known to happen, crazy here, this and this. But if people, 100 years from now, for 100 years have been saying some tragic so-and-so happened here, I'm sure something will turn. There'll be a twist, a vortex of some sort that will create whatever needs to be created. And it could be impactful.
I definitely agree with everything you just said. Because I look at this on both angles. I look at it as a skeptic, and I look at it as a person who lives it and believes it. Experience. And if you had 100 people investigating right now, and you take out all the happy people, something is going to transpire because of the intent to draw up that energy.
And I'm glad you said that. Absolutely. Most of my cases throughout the years, I've been a happy person. Probably I had more fear-based, I think, the first 5 years of on-site. Scary, all right? But after that, it was more fascinating, and I changed moods. Once I changed moods, the investigations got a lot easier, got a lot more interactive. It was fascinating, but then if I pull someone in, and I love Sean, I do. I think Sean's a great person, and he's needed to be, in this doing what he's doing in this world, in this realm. But whenever I happen to work with a demonologist or someone that has that, there's stuff that goes down. Yeah. You call it what it is. It's what happens.
Well, that's true. Enough people with the belief and intent can draw these things up, and then people, you said something a little bit earlier that it can hurt you, and it can.
Yeah, it can.
I'm glad Sean was there. But I've seen people, their eyes turn black. I've seen the nicest, sweetest people want to kick my butt.
So strange.
And I've seen rage in people that never showed rage before. So to me, it's as if the entity knows how to use us as a conduit, because once it learns us, it knows how to take us over. Each and every
it manipulates the vessel, right? So the energies itself is everywhere. and whatever we define that energy is, if they can jump into a consciousness moment, try to take over the vessel, or at least influence, maybe influence is the best word, influence the vessel, crazy things could happen. I actually do some exorcisms. I have a 100% conduction rate throughout the years. It's something I don't really illustrate, but I've been asked by the Warren Foundation a couple times, at least members of them, states away, and it's simple with the process that I do it. But typically, they don't let me play because I don't do it a very Catholic way. I do it the best. I don't want to use the word logic because I feel like sometimes that's derogatory, and I don't mean it by that. But the grounded way, the best way I see it, right? So it's conviction and it's confidence, and that's all you need. That's what a priest says.
Yeah.
And yeah, but people turn, and you're right. I see very good people. 100% of the exorcisms that I've done, I've been threatened death. It's a thing.
I believe that paranormal investigation for 4 or 6 hours doesn't do any justice, because unless you know how a family wakes up in the morning, how the afternoon goes, how they go to bed, you really don't know what they're dealing with. And like the movie The Conjuring, they stayed there, right? It was in Lorraine's room. They slept over.
Yeah.
Right.
That's why I like that. The
28 days is awesome.
Because it's true.
Thank you, guys.
It's true. You need that time to really understand what is going on there.
And I don't like the word debunk. I never liked that word so much, just because you're right, Phil. You're just in this area for a small amount of time, and now you're telling the family that they're wrong with what they felt, and there's so many more layers and elements with that. And if we talk scientifically, right, to disprove something is actually inaccurate in a scientific terms. You can only prove the existence of something, and how can we prove the existence that something didn't happen without a long period or a perpetual period? I wouldn't even know what time frame to put on that, right? So it's very personal. A lot of this stuff is very personal. Consciousness based, I feel. Maybe slight interpretation, but it's real, and it can do what it needs to do. It can do what it can do, I should say.
Yeah.
So if you, in that same scenario, if you took people that didn't believe and didn't know what was going on over there, and they stayed there 28 days, just normal family, right? Would anything happen? Or nothing would happen because there's no belief and intent to make it happen?
Yeah.
And that's actually that's a very powerful question. That's phenomenal, because I wrap my head around that, because of course there's multiple narratives with that. I hear stories, and I hear a lot of people say that they didn't believe until they moved in a house and this thing happened, or they did an event with us and this thing happened. So if a house is like naturally vibrating, or it has a moment, the potential is there, but it's going to be consciousness interpretation. So if let's say you're a specific religion, however your upbringing, your culture is going to interpret this event, it's going to happen. If you're let's say non-believer, not necessarily atheist. Funny thing with atheist used to mean belief in one God in a polytheist world, and they were shunned. The atheists kind of change their meaning nowadays, but I'll say a non-believer. I don't think would have an experience unless a tick of his consciousness is open for it, and maybe they don't even know that they're open for it, and it's one of those scenarios. And if something does happen, they'll probably wet themselves and or something else, because skeptics and cynics tend to be the most terrified individuals I've ever heard of or seen when it finally happens. I don't think they'll have enough the same reaction that our group had, though, at the location, to kind of answer the question that way.
Yeah. I mean, do you think like being sensitive, you're more prone to some spiritual attacks than maybe
It's that rapport. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I look at the Amityville Horror, right? I mean, that's the basis of a lot of the foundation of paranormal for a lot of different areas, because the first family, obviously, it was a tragedy. The second
Right.
family made a claim that they were dealing with something, and that was a big question mark, right? Whether they were telling the truth or not. But then other families went into the house and said there's nothing here.
Right.
And then another family went into the house and says there are things here. So it's very interesting how the other realm works with the existence of us when we're in its domain.
Right.
And then some people could say, no, 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 it's nothing. It's just you. And then other people can deal with things like parlor tricks from the look. I've seen things that cannot be explained, and you know, so I know it's real, and I try
Of
to
course.
understand it as
Right.
best as
Right.
I can. Because a person like myself, I don't take anybody's word for it, right? I don't. Like I had to see it myself. Like I had to see toys moving without batteries.
I did too. I did too. Yeah.
And when you see that, you can't bring an explanation to that. There is no explanation.
I almost put myself in a home. Actually, it was 2003. Something happened. I was shocked. Head exploded pretty much because that happens. Froze. And the next day, I had the phone number literally in my Nokia cell phone. The cheap one, the only one, probably the good one. But yeah, I had it, and I was ready to push talk to make that call. But before I did that, I did my diligence and actually researched the area, the historical data, and the folklore data. And to my surprise, perfect storm. Perfect storm.
Yeah, and it can make you do things and hallucinate, and people manipulate. People don't realize what's happening.
And mimic.
Yeah.
It can make you feel like you're crazy.
And I talked about this also. Julie and I do the radio show for learning and teaching purposes. Like, we're talking to somebody like yourself, who you do great work, and we'd like to teach people that this is real. And but there's more to it. You see, so we know that there's another side. We know that entities and spirits and ghosts do exist. But what about the people who have these voices in their head, and they go crazy, and they start doing these things that they put them behind bars, only to maybe find out if there was enough research done that it was triggered off by something that made them do it.
Well, if you think about my research has led to very heavy consciousness, I guess, influence or consciousness complement. So with that in mind, to me, it makes sense that energy can manipulate and throw some voices in there. We even got, which is fascinating, and I got it documented, and I actually rolled around with the talk for a while with that, even with presenting it. But we asked, the spirit box, tell us something we don't know. And it said, you get sucked up, and that's where babies come from. If you think about it, the energy's all around us. Conception happens, boom, the biology kicks in. And now that biology the vessel has gasoline. So that gasoline is the consciousness of who's driving it. The brain is pretty much the levers that you pull, but the consciousness, is very, very neutral. So who to say that doesn't suck up two drivers in the car? Or again, the influence around that's so strong with the energy being everywhere. And I keep using energy just as the popular word, but it's something else. There's something else with the mechanic. So I collaborate with, or I have collaborated and spoke with the leading scientists of free electricity, and they have a very heavy idea that it's downward flowing ether. This is actually fascinating because it really works in conjunction to what we do as investigators. Even Einstein he admitted that his work, it was a high percentage, I don't know the exact number, like 85% of his theories were actually wrong. About 10 years before his death, there was another physicist or theorist that came out that had better theories in a sense. And at the end of the day, they're all theories. But the big one that we always I rolled with for so long, and the rest of the field, I think, still rolls with this one, the theory of relativity, where energy cannot be created, destroyed, only transfer. But that can be confusing in the big scheme of things. It still leaves us in a moment. Well, to kind of change the script a little bit, energy itself is perpetually made and destroyed at the same exact time. It's what's in the middle that's kind of, keeping things, I guess, moving, or maybe answers perpetual motion, inertia, gravity, in a sense, or at least could. It's a strong combatant, is that downward flowing ether, or the mass consciousness is what I call it. And the scientists kind of paraphrase that back my way. So it's interesting, because if you think about that mass consciousness scenario that's all like around us, that's all living, and that kind of controls the flow of what we're doing. And if it's in tune with our consciousness, prayer works, well wishes, good vibes, whatever name you want to put, whatever focus you want to do. It's just, how practiced are you? You're not wrong. You're enjoying the values that you're experiencing in the vessel.
Right.
That's pretty fascinating.
What do you think is the most validating piece of evidence that you guys use to capture evidence? Okay, so the talkie boxes, I get people are up in arms, and that's always why it's hard for me to present like sayings, like you get sucked up and that's where babies come from. It's very clear, and we can go around behaviors that I feel are valuable within that conversation piece. There's an experiment I can do. I haven't done it myself, but I have all the tools to do it. I've seen the results. I spoke to the scientists. That's the experiment that's going to do well. Anything that we've got, there's about a 5-minute experiment that hit an intelligent, multiple EVP, an intelligent EMF reads, and spirit box, and anomaly, actually, all in 5 minutes in context to what I was asking to do, which it was super phenomenal. I got documented on my YouTube. So that's cool. I think that has a lot of significance. However, it's not going to sell the world. The piece that I'm working on, the experiment that I'm working on, actually can manifest an entity, and it can duplicate it. That's mind-blowing. I'm not sure if the world's ready for that. I've seen it. I actually got pictures of it. I've got the build-up of how to do it. It's all about getting to my Patreon, letting the Patreon folks help me fund that and push forward. That's just one of many experiments that haven't been seen that people said we're not going to know until we die. And I think that's one of the biggest lies. I think that's lazy. I think we can try as hard as we can. Not to say I'm going to figure it out. Not at all. But I'm going to act like I can. And I'm going to push the boundaries and upset a lot of people. I understand this. But hell, there's a potential to make an entity and duplicate it, and it's intelligent. Yes, that's going to be fascinating.
Very well said.
Yeah. Have you ever had an intelligent conversation with the spirit from the other side? They tell you, for example, where they are, what they see, what they observe. Did you ever get any of that?
Yes, blue tends to come out a lot. Well, but the question, mind you, was what happens when we pass away, or transition. Beautiful blue light, blue. I've did it multiple times in group, solo, team environments, and I don't say what I hear. I get other people that say it, and it all turns out to be blue, which is fascinating. Because if you look at blue in the spectrum of colors, it's very long wavelengths. We're talking terrestrial, not extraterrestrial, outside of Earth, but terrestrial. There'll be very small particles, large wavelengths, small particles, and that's why the sky is seen as blue, because of Earth emits these particles that provide this almost, I don't want to say illusion, but yeah. So technically, scientifically, if you were to die terrestrial here on Earth, you would see blue upon that transition. That makes sense. And I know I've asked the question, in regards of surroundings, they have intelligent, but I'll be honest with you, that a lot of the questions are mechanics of why, this and that. I guess I haven't focused too much on what do you see around you right now. But I have had intelligent conversations with unique, specific voices that were consistent in a device that cynics would, I mean, they would be floored on the same voice being intelligent, multiple syllables, indirect.
I have a hard question for you.
Please.
And this is a question I ask myself too, because I'm a believer in what we do in paranormal.
Right.
And the question is, now we know, and you know that when you cross over, there's another part of us, like energy goes on, and we are communicating sometimes with that energy. Well, how come the energy that we're communicating with doesn't help us find missing children or people who were killed in the line of communication through a voice box or spirit box or audio recorder, letting us know, because they are on that side, hey,
Right.
you can find this person at this location. How come we have not gotten that far yet?
Because the energy overall doesn't care, right? So what you described is a value to us. Absolutely. Like it breaks my heart to even think about it. A family member, my little girl, she passed away. I want to know, I'd want to use all my resources, including the supernatural ones, to get it. But the big kicker is the energy, the mechanic of them is they don't, and not that they don't care. It doesn't bother them. They don't see it as a means to end. Example. So when we pass away, right, we don't take our lungs with us. That makes sense? We don't take our brain with us. We don't take our physical heart, our limbs, our hands. So why on earth would humans believe that we take our lobes with us, that 100% control hate and love? That was something that we put in our system so we can have value towards this world, whatever system that we choose to do. And our culture, our communities, we live it. That's in a sense, that's a meaning of life. If we're in our biological specimen, our vessel, and we get to experience emotion, that's a win. That's I feel really why we're here, and then we just get recycled back into whatever the next scenario is. And I do think the mechanic is for reincarnation to be consistent. That again just makes sense with my build up. But again, to go back to what you're saying, is if we're asking the bigger, larger consciousness, consciousness is very neutral. People, they pass away and they say, "Oh, I'm feel at peace. I'm peace." Peace is void of emotion. It's we feel cool. We're fine. And it kind of breaks. Honestly, when I came to this just a few years ago, when I started coming to this development, I'll be honest with you, I was in tears. I was on the phone for 17 hours on a long trip with a shaman and a scientist, a buddy of mine, because I just didn't like it. And for the first year, I was kind of regurgitating this to some people, small groups. No one really liked what I was saying. And I go, "Hey, I agree with you. I hate it too," but it makes sense. And I got to think beyond my own emotional scenario, because if I think logically, once we're out of this vessel, we don't have that hate and love, that fear, all those things. What I feel, honestly, what a ghost of spirit is, I feel like we got it wrong in context. I feel a ghost of spirit tends to be a biological reaction of the consciousness separating from the vessel upon exploration, even like an echo or a smart photo with AI capabilities. So gram's perfectly fine, but her memory may remain. That just makes sense to me. So again, we create our own monsters, we create our own photos in time, and it's very smart, and your loved ones can give you the best love letter ever by seeing them again. But at the end of the day, I guess I like it that we're at peace, real peace, like no one's trapped. It's this type scenario, which again, controversial, but yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I kind of like that response. That was a good answer.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It makes sense because I do hear that especially people who have near-death experience, they say that it's a different form of consciousness. That we're
Right.
not thinking on the mind's terms here. It's different.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not that they don't care, but it's seen differently.
It turns, and again, I hate using the word logic. I really want to find a better word for logic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that's my scientific brain, for years of me saying that, still programmed in. It's natural. Maybe that's
Yeah.
the way to say it. I like
Yeah.
that. I'm gonna start using that.
That's a good word for it. Definitely.
Yeah.
I like to see continuation of 28 days because I think it's great, and I think it's a
Thank you.
learning tool for those that are knowledgeable in the field and those that are seeking interest how this actually works. Because I believe in the procedures that you guys are doing. And just for thought, maybe you guys change locations or
Of
whatever
course.
the case may be, or change
Changing
homes,
groups even, right? Maybe.
change groups, and
Yeah.
see what comes through. But I think it's fascinating, and I'd like to see more of it.
I just want to say hi to who's that, Becky? Hi, Becky.
Hey, Becky.
Hi.
Hey, as we're gonna round up the show here. You've been a fabulous guest with a lot of knowledge. Tell people where they can find you and what you might have going on.
You rock. Thank you so much. And again, thank you guys both for having me on the show. This has been awesome.
Thank you.
Oh, this is
You're
awesome.
welcome. So you guys, everyone who's listening and is interested, you can go to AaronGThompson.com. Make it as easy as that. All my social links are right there. And if you want to support kind of the science, and that's really what I want to push with the exposure, of course, in the show, or wherever other shows in the future may come. It's patreon.com/tismeAaronG, but again, you can get that off of AaronGThompson.com. And also, I sell really awesome glow rings, guys.
Oh,
They
yeah,
actually,
I've seen them. They're very, very
they're super fun. They're super cool, and I'm happy that I'm able to actually make them at an incredibly cut price for people. So,
That's really cool. I like those. That's cool.
Especially for ghost hunters.
I like that.
Well, keep doing what you're doing. You guys doing a great job. Really doing a great job, and we hope to see season 2.
Oh yeah, definitely.
We're
Thank
all
you so much.
hoping. So thank you again, and you have a great night. And guys, special thanks to Nation for fully sponsoring the show. And stay tuned for Trishima with the missing piece next. Thank you so much, Aaron. You have a great night.
Thank you.
You too. Good night, guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.